Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Skelly, and this is the Global Conversation. This is the second of our mini lectures for the fall semester, and I have a fair number of administrative and other interesting issues to discuss with you. The first thing to note is that you will see at the top of the homepage for the course the midterm essay. Now, that midterm essay is required of Juniata College students, and if you're studying, as well as Universidad Veracruzana students. The due dates are somewhat different depending upon when you started the course, so take a look at the essay, it'll show you the due dates. And for students at the Institute for American Universities in France, you should check with Professor Triolo. He may not want you to do this exact essay, he may have something else in mind, but do check with him as to how he expects to assess you and whether he's going to do that at midterm or when. A number of other issues, I think, and if you have any questions about, the essay, please get in touch with us. If anybody's auditing the class, you should feel free to be in touch with us as well about it. The big news, and let me just say a couple of other things before I forget it. I'm particularly interested to see you posting on the course forums. Start your own discussion forum and raise issues that you think are important. I noticed that a number of people did that this year. I've commented on a couple of them. Elena Colsa from Spain has posted a video about the plastic in the ocean that is killing albatrosses. And it's a short video, but it's quite disturbing. I've suggested you all look as well as the one that we've posted on the course website, which looks at the extent of the plastic in the ocean. And what happens is it looks a bit like plankton when it breaks down, when the plastic breaks down. And so the sea life and the birds that normally eat plankton mistake it for plankton and mistake the plastic for plankton, and they start ingesting it, ultimately kills them. So, and there's quite a bit of it, especially in the Great Pacific Gyre, which is what Elena has pointed to. And the Great Pacific Gyre acts in a certain way like a slow sink, and therefore plastic and other rubbish collects in that area. Elena Gerchak also did something around plastic in the ocean, showing a Chinese artist who is making art from the plastic she's finding in the ocean. And I have to say, the art is, as I pointed out in my response to Elena, it's sadly beautiful. Take a look at those things. And again, the broader picture this week is that there are issues coming to the fore, and I want to bring some of those to your attention. The most important, and I'm going to send you a copy of some of the findings, especially from one of the working groups. Let me see if I can give you a sense of this. The physical science. I'm going to send you that report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. There are the overall report that is just being issued, aspects of it are coming forward this weekend, is not a good one. And I want to read you some of the highlights. This week we'll have Isabel Hilton with us, who's the editor and founder of China Dialogue. I hope you're taking a look at that. But I'm going to try and do an interview with Isabel to talk about some of this because she is a leading expert on it. Let me just give you a sense. This is the fifth assessment report from the Intergovernmental Panel, founded by the United Nations. These are the leading scientists in the world, and so you might listen to some of these findings. With regard to temperatures, scientists are now at least 66% certain that the last 3 decades are the warmest in 1,400 years, with global temperatures having risen by close to 1 degree centigrade in the last century. However, more than 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases is being stored in the oceans. This is why surface temperature has not increased, because it's being absorbed by the oceans. In the oceans, as the report says, the strongest surface warming is expected in tropical and subtropical regions, up to 2 degrees centigrade by the end of this century, and posing a grave threat to coral reefs, which sustain much of sea life, and they are also affected by the acidity that is coming from the carbon as well, so the coral reefs are beginning to break down. With regard to the oceans, the new projections for the sea level in the period 2080 to 2100, your children and grandchildren will, of course, be alive in that period if you decide to have some, are greater than in the 2007 report that the IPCC did, and their estimates now are ranging from 45 to 82 centimeters higher than now if nothing is done to curb emissions, to 26 to 55 centimeters if carbon emissions are halted and reversed. The problem is that with extreme weather events such as hurricanes, cities like Shanghai or New York are seriously threatened, and they expect much more damage than has occurred to date when these storms hit the shorelines. As I said, the acidity is worse. Arctic sea ice has been melting by about 9 to 14% a decade since 1979, while the sea ice around Antarctica has been increasing by 1 to 2%, probably in that case due to current changes in the ocean. Scientists are 90% sure that Arctic sea ice, snow cover, and glaciers will continue to shrink. Scientists say a, quote, nearly ice-free, end quote, Arctic Ocean in September is at least 66% likely before 2050. By 2100, between 35% and 85% of the remaining world glacier volume will have vanished if emissions are not cut. Permafrost is also 99% likely to shrink further. It's also a certainty that 90% certainty that the number of warm days and nights have increased globally, and heat waves have become more frequent. More heavy rainfall and more frequency of warm days and warm nights in the next decades ahead. They've talked about the possibility as well of geoengineering. In other words, to send up things that might reflect sunlight back into the upper atmosphere and beyond, and therefore slow warming. There's a lot of talk of this, and we should be concerned about it because we don't know what the side effects are going to be. And the scientists also say it's very likely that the so-called Gulf Stream, which carries warm water, from the Caribbean to Western Europe, will weaken over the 21st century. But it is very unlikely to collapse or undergo a major transition this century. Finally, one of the things they talk about, and I'll send you all of this, the thing that they worry about is those who deny what's going on. They say it is extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. The report rules out any significant contribution from changing solar cycles, volcanoes, and cosmic rays. So you do want to be taking a look at this, consider it if you find it not compelling, think about why that might be the case, etc. A couple of other things here. Let's see. I want to point to one of the people that we had here at Trinity College some time ago was the former Irish president and former chair of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, Mary Robinson. Mary Robinson, a few years ago, put together a foundation, and it's called the Mary Robinson Foundation for Climate Justice. And one of the things she's just come out and said is, and I think this is going to have to be increasingly our general position, don't take any more fossil fuel out of the earth, right? Leave the fossil fuels in the earth, and let's get busy on creating alternative sources of energy. That's going to be very, very difficult to accomplish politically, but I don't see how we can avoid it. So take a look at all of those things. There's one other thing I wanted to point out to you this week, and that's the story of a meteorologist who has covered the weather for some time for the Wall Street Journal, the paper that is dedicated especially to economic issues. His name is Eric Holthouse, and Eric Holthouse recently tweeted that he will no longer fly on planes after the latest climate change report because it left him in tears. He was reacting to findings from the Intergovernmental Panel on climate change, which found that it's extremely likely that humans are causing warming trends, okay, just as we've said. But here's some of the tweets that he sent out, and I'll just read you some of these because I find them in some ways really touching, but just listen to some of these. First one was, I just broke down in tears in boarding area at San Francisco airport while on phone with my wife. I've never cried because of a science report before. And then he goes on, I realized just now, this has to be the last flight I ever take. I'm committing right now to stopping flying. It's not worth the climate. And then later he says, we all have to do everything we can every day to reverse CO2 emissions. There's no other way that makes sense. All of our energy, each one of us, should be devoted to this issue. Nothing else matters. It's a zero-sum game. Why am I committed to not flying anymore? It's the same reason I'm vegetarian. It's my biggest carbon footprint. I mean, he also indicates that he's decided not to have children in order to leave a lighter carbon footprint. It sounds extreme, but when you start to really look at this, I think you begin to say, oh my God, we really do have to do something. So that's all I have for today. I'm going to send you a couple of other things. One is an interactive chart from the Guardian newspaper that's built on the IPCC report, and that is a look at how hot it's going to get in your lifetime, because so many of you will live much longer, hopefully. So if you have another 60 years or so on the planet, you might want to check out this interactive site. Okay, that's all for now. Please be in touch if you have any questions about the midterm or anything else relating to the course. Please get in touch with Sadie, myself, Uma Ramakrishna, and each other. Please post, and we really do argue that this is collaborative learning, so all of you should be posting and helping to educate everybody else in the course. That's all for now. See you next week, I hope. I'm hoping I'll be able to post an interview with Isabel Hilton at that time, and all the best.